So in July of 2021, I hiked the Skye Trail, which is a hike in Scotland on the Isle of Skye. It's an 80-mile hike. I spent 6 days on the trail, 4 nights I wild camped, and 1 night I spent in a B&B. So this video I will give you some advice and just some general information on the trail, and I'll reflect on my experience to hopefully ensure that you have a fantastic time on the trail as well. So this is the Isle of Skye, situated in the northwest of Scotland. If we zoom in a little bit here and you can see the red highlight, that is the actual Skye Trail. So beginning up here in Duntorm and travelling all the way down to the southeast to Broadford, which is the finishing point. So in total I hiked about 91 miles, which is an extra 11 miles due to some extra exploring I did around the Red Coolins, which is around this section here. But as I said, the traditional hike is 80 miles or 128 kilometres. So I got a flight from Luton near London to Inverness, and once I got to Inverness I got the CityLink bus number 917, which travels all the way from Inverness to Portree, so travels south here and then goes west, comes to Broadford, which is where I actually got off and stayed my first night, which is the end of the trail. And the reason I did that was so that I could leave a spare change of clothes at a B&B for the end of the trail. The following day I got the bus number 57, I believe, no 52, from Broadford, and it went up here all the way to Portree, which is the capital of the island. Once I got here, I waited an hour before I got bus number 57C, which travelled up this highway here, and I got off at Duntorm, which is the beginning of the trailhead. So Duntorm was the starting point for the trail. We got dropped off near the castle, so the Duntorm Castle over here, which is a bit of a tourist spot, so I would recommend to have a quick look there if you can. But otherwise, it's at I believe it's the Red Phone Box, which is the official starting point. You walk out to this headland here, which is the Rubberhunush headland. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. There's also a bothy that sits out here as well, so the bothies are essentially, small structures that are dotted throughout the Scottish Highlands, which are places essentially where you can stay overnight, as long as you are, you're respectful, you take your rubbish and you clean up after yourself. Moving on, anyway, from the headland, you head east, tracking the coastline. You pass through a few villages, a few farms. It's quite nice, coastal scenes. It's nothing too difficult at this point in time. You begin to approach Fluttergarry. Now, Fluttergarry is in the official guidebook. This is the spot where you would finish your first day, and I believe it's only about 14 or 15 kilometres. Yeah, so about 15 kilometres in. So for us, it was a little bit short, but we still stopped off at the hotel and, we grabbed a quick pint, or Laszlo did, whilst I grabbed a coffee. So we spent a bit of time here. We also had a chat to the Fluttergarry hostel owners. The hostel's closed at the moment, unfortunately, due to COVID, but we had a quick chat to them, and they're hoping to open up again soon, which would be fantastic. Very friendly people, very welcoming little community here at Fluttergarry. So as I said, we decided to continue on. The next section was ascending the Korang, which is quite a unique rock formation, and essentially is the beginning of the Trottenish Ridge. Trottenish Ridge is this ridgeline here, which is what we would come to tackle in the next few days. But this was a really cool spot, really cool views, and we obviously started to encounter our first bits of elevation here. And this is the spot here where we camped for the first night. So this is a car park for the Korang, so lots of day trippers come here and ascend the Korang and do the loop around. We camped around, I think it was just a little bit further up. It's nice and secluded. We didn't really have anyone else around other than a few day trippers who were finishing up their hike for the day. But a great little spot, would recommend. Not too much water here. We did manage to find a little bit when we were descending the Korang, but that was only because it had been raining the previous few days. So if you are coming here and it's been quite dry, I would definitely recommend filling up either at this lake or at Fluttergarry. But yeah, this spot here I believe is about 22 kilometres. Yeah, so about 21 kilometres, 22 kilometres for the first day. So yeah, that was day one. Wasn't overly challenging, relatively straightforward. Great views at the Kerrang. That was one of the highlights of the trip, along with the rest of the Trotternish Ridge. So yeah, that was day 1. So day 2, we travelled from the Kerrang car park here all the way down along the ridge to the store, and I believe it was about 22 kilometres in total, and somewhere between 700 and 900 metres of elevation. Now this section was by far the toughest of the whole trail, but also the most memorable because of the amazing views that we just had along the trail. When we first left the car park, we had quite a bit of cloud cover, we had quite a bit of rain as well, so it was a little bit miserable to begin with. Couldn't really see at all where we were going. There was basically no trail or no way marking, so we were quite fortunate to have had downloaded the offline maps on all trails, so we could basically just use that as a GPS to know where we were going. I think if we had the paper maps, we were just relying on that, we may have struggled because there was no way to sort of see where we were or use anything as a landmark. So yeah, quite a bit of cloud cover until I think we got to maybe the second or third ridge, or the second or third peak, and that's when the weather really started to improve and we started to have fantastic views out to the west and out to the east as well. Got some great shots on the drone, and yeah, it was just fantastic hiking up above the clouds. One of the most memorable days I'll probably ever have of hiking, I think, and to be able to spend that with Laszlo as well was great, because he was such great company for this trip. And yeah, the day honestly just continued to improve as we went on a little bit further. I think around here we started to really see the ridge for what it was, which was just amazing. The camping spot here, just above the store was, or just below the store, sorry, over here was a fantastic little spot as well. So we had a big rock behind us which provided us with a bit of shelter from the wind, and to be honest there wasn't any midges, so it was a nice spot to relax after a big day of hiking with quite a bit of elevation. As I said, there's not so much in the way of a trail along the ridge here, so you are sort of relying on some good navigational skills or a downloaded offline map to help you get through this part, particularly if it's poor weather. There's not much water either. I think we were lucky in the beginning back around here to find a bit of a waterfall where we filled up our bottles, because there was definitely not much water further along around here. But yeah, as I said, overall, just in good weather, I think this is probably one of the best ridge walks you will ever find, at least in Europe. So definitely try to get up to at least do the first section of the Skye Trail if you find yourself up in Scotland. So day 3, we would start at the store and we would eventually finish in Portree. So we made our way down to the Needle, which again is a rock formation that has sort of come about because of this giant landslip. Big tourist spot with the car park down here and lots of people making their way up on day trips, but we got there nice and early. There was barely anyone around, so we had the whole place to ourselves and spent a bit of time here just admiring the view before we started the decline down here, just down towards the car park and then across the road, and then making our way towards this ridge line which followed the coastline. And it was quite a nice ridge. Again, amazing views. It was a stunning hot summer day. Quite a bit of a slog up here. Quite good in terms of way marking, a nice path to follow, but I think we were suffering from the heat a little bit at this stage. But yeah, no, it was still a really, really good day. I think in total from the store all the way along to Portree was around 20 kilometers, maybe just under. But yeah, no, it was a good day. It was nothing like the previous days, like the Trotternish Ridge or the Kerrang, but it was still, it's just great to be in amazing weather, to be honest. And once we did get to the Isle's capital of Portree, we got some fish and chips, we got a coffee, Laszlo got another pint, and we just relaxed, really. We had a great time just chilling out for a little bit, refueling, restocking supplies, and then I stayed in a B&B whilst Laszlo stayed in the hostel. So day 4 was from Portree all the way down here to Sligachen, which was about 20 kilometers in total. The beginning of this part was not the best. It was walking along the road, just coming out of Portree for a little bit, so nothing exciting here. Still following the road along here for quite some time, walking through some, small villages, small farmland. Again, it was, quite nice on the eyes, but it's not the sort of hiking that, I would go all the way to Scotland to do. So it's just one of those stretches, unfortunately, that you have to push through. So I think around this area here is when you come off the road and you start to walk along this loch here. Now, this is where things started to become a little bit more exciting. So this is Loch Sligachen. Again, walking along the bank of the loch is nothing special, but as you approach Sligachen, which is a small village here, you get a great view of these mountains here. So I believe Blackcullen's here, and then you've got the red ones on the left, so creating this valley, which is where we would head the following day. But once we reached Sligachen, we set up our tents and we sort of had a quick snack, and then I decided to go up and just do a bit of exploring just around the base of the Blackcullens. So hiked all the way up here and got some drone shots. Midges were awful, just absolutely awful here in Sligachen. As you can see, there's quite a few rivers leading down towards Loch Sligachen, so just be aware of that. So we didn't spend too much time outside. We did quickly wash off in the river, but had to go quickly back into our tents because the midges were just making things absolutely unbearable. So yeah, as I said, it wasn't too bad of a day. Again, lots of road walking at this section from Portree, particularly along here, busy road, and then quiet road along here in the countryside, then along the loch and up to Sligachen. So not a bad day. So day 5 was the day that Laszlo and I unfortunately had to split up. So Laszlo went on ahead whilst I continued to do a bit of filming. Laszlo actually finished this whole, the rest of the trail in this whole day. So went all the way from Sligachen to Elgol to Torrin to Broadford, whereas I went from Sligachen down here to Elgol and then around here and camped at this little spot here. So I think in total about 24 kilometres from Sligachen to Torrin for me on this day. My favourite section here was walking along this valley here between the Red and the Blackcullen mountain ranges. So just amazing views here. I think it was around here where I got a good shot of the Blackcullens sort of looming above, and continued on through this section in here around some lochs, and then came out to this sort of beachhead here. Believe down here there is a little bothy that you have the option to stay at if you wanted, but obviously that was quite a short distance, so I was gonna continue on for the day. So walked along here, and this section along here to Elgol is, my opinion, is just awful. It's walking along a cliff here, very, very slow, very, very overgrown, so just wore me down, really sort of demoralised me, to be honest. But once I reached Elgol, I stopped off at the famous shop here. I got so many chocolates and snacks, had a double shot coffee, I believe, and I think at this stage it was around 3 or 4 o'clock, probably 4 o'clock, but in the summer up here the sun goes down at around 9 or 10 p.m, so still had plenty of time, to be honest. And from here it's a little bit of walking along a track, a bit of road as well, cutting across through here. Not a whole lot to see. As you come further up here, you start to get a bit more of a view of the the red Cullens in the background. There's a bit of road walking here, which again is not spectacular, but it was again a lovely day, nice to be out, good views of these mountain ranges here, and bit of a ridge sort of walk along here, or at least by the side of the ridge, before you descend down to this area here. Torrin is the next section, or the next town along. I stopped around here just by the loch. There's a breeze here, so I didn't have too many issues with the midges. Had a great view of the red Cullens in the background, and just a nice little spot to stop and camp. So yeah, that was day 5. So in this day I had combined 2 sections. So in the guidebook, it typically recommends Sligachen down to Elgol, but I decided to combine the extra section on to Torrin, and that was purely because we had a forecast of some rain coming through soon, so I wanted to push on, and I felt fresh and I felt good, particularly after having all the chocolate and coffee in Elgol. So yeah, it was again another good day. Weather we could see was starting to roll in. The next day was forecasted to have a bit of rain, so I was just sort of preparing for that, I guess. And finally, day 6 would take me from Torrin all the way through to Broadford. So this day we had a little bit of rain, particularly as I was leaving through Torrin, but nothing too bad. And again, along here you've got a bit of road walking. You do come to a section, I believe it's down here, where there's a car park. And you come off the road here and you sort of go back onto the trail and you follow around this headland here and you come down here. I think it's sort of in this vicinity here where there are some old settlements and ruins from the Highland clearances, which if you don't know, look it up. It's quite interesting, quite a dark chapter of Scottish history, but essentially some of the locals throughout the Scottish Highlands, particularly on the Isle of Skye, were cleared out of their homes because essentially the landlords needed more land for their sheep. So a lot of these people ended up emigrating on to Australia, New Zealand, America, and it's just quite a fascinating, dark and sort of upsetting chapter in the history of the Isle of Skye, but quite daunting walking through there as well. And then you sort of have a bit of elevation here and you walk on towards Broadford. So I guess in total, the distance that we're sort of talking here, or at least that I did from over here to the end here, was again about 23 kilometers, so it wasn't anything too serious, not too much elevation. As you can see, a lot of flat ground. There is a cafe here in Torrin which is quite famous as a bit of a stop off along the Skye Trail. Unfortunately, I was up and leaving a bit early, so wasn't able to stop off. There's not so much water on this section either, so it's a good idea to stock up in Torrin. But finished up here in Broadford, which was the spot that I stayed overnight when I first got to the Isle of Skye. So I stayed in the same Airbnb, had a fresh change of clothes there for me, and that essentially concluded my time on the Skye Trail. Just an amazing trail in total. As I said, the total distance that I got to was about 145 kilometers, but it is typically done over 128 kilometers, and just an amazing experience. Obviously, the weather can be quite variable, particularly being in the Scottish Highlands, but we lucked out for, at least the first 3 quarters of it had sunny, hot days. Just amazing. And as I said, my favourite section is definitely this first section, particularly coming up to the Quarang and then along the Trottenish Ridge, all the way to the Old Man of Store and the Needle there. And also this part here into Portree was quite good. Probably following that, walking between the Black Cullens and the Red Cullens here. Obviously a bit of road walking coming out of Portree, which was probably not my favourite section, and also the section between Torrin and Broadford, although quite an interesting stop off at the old Highland clearances sort of settlement here. But other than that, nothing too exciting, but again, still just amazing to be on this very special island, getting to look around. So if you are planning to come do the Skye Trail, by all means, get in contact with me if you have any questions or drop any comments below. But it's one of those must-do hikes, I would say, in Scotland, particularly even in Europe. It's not that well known. It should be, and I think it is growing in popular very slowly. So get in now whilst there's not that many people on the trail, so you can do it in solitude. But otherwise, that's it. In terms of my gear, you'll probably notice that I used a Hillyberg Acto as my tent for the trip, which has now been updated and replaced with my Big Agnes copper spur. But the Hillyberg Acto, it's a fantastic tent. It's absolutely bomb-proof, and you can put it through absolutely anything. The only reason that I've moved on to the Big Agnes now is the Big Agnes is a little bit more lightweight, obviously a little bit more fragile and less resilient, but I've decided having a little bit more room and less weight with the Agnes copper spur is worth the trade-off for having less resilience. So, but yeah, as I said, the Acto was fantastic for this trip. It was a great tent, would recommend. Quite expensive though, but then again, so is the Big Agnes. For my rucksack, I used the Atom Packs Mauve. It's a 55 litre customizable pack that I've got, and I also have a DCF pack liner, and you can find more details on the Atom Packs website, but they're made here in the UK, in England. I believe it's the Lake District, and just a fantastic pack. I talk a little bit more about it in my gear video, but this pack is just super convenient. One main pocket, which is very, very spacious, and some very, very convenient side pockets and an elastic front pocket. So this managed to fit all of my camping gear plus my film gear very, very well, and it carries heavy loads, probably up to about 15-16 kilos very, very comfortably. The quilt that I use is my Cumulus 250 quilt. Cumulus, I believe, are based in Poland. It's got a comfort temperature, I believe, of 3 or 4 degrees. I think it's 4 degrees, and a limit temperature of 0 degrees. But obviously it was summer at the time. I was probably even too hot using this quilt along with the Thermarest sleeping pad. But I love this quilt. I used it in Iceland as well, where the temperatures got a little bit cooler and just perfect. Probably wouldn't be too good for winter. Probably would be a little bit chilly, but so far I'm loving it for 3-season use. And as I mentioned, my Thermarest ultralight camping pad, just the most comfortable sleeping pad I've ever used. We'll continue to use it for the foreseeable future. The other thing to note that were sort of really, really handy were my Brooks Men's Cascadia 15 running shoes. So I've switched over to trail running shoes now, as I feel as though I can move a bit quicker and more comfortably in trail runners compared to boots. Obviously, you get damp feet much easier, and I believe the shoes do get worn down much quicker as well, but for me, the trade-off is worth it, and I'll continue to use those along with my Darn Tough men's hiker boot socks, which are fantastic. The combination of these two, I've never had any issues with any blisters or any foot related problems, so I'm very, very happy with that. Jetboil Micromo, game changer, boils water in seconds, very handy for my dehydrated or freeze-dried meals, and so was my Katadyn Be-Free filter bottle. Just found that to be a game changer. To be honest, filters water very fast. I also use it as a water bottle to just store water, along with probably another 2 litre bottle. So on the trip I was probably carrying 3 litres at most at any time. On average, probably between 1 and 2 litres. So yeah, that's most of the gear that I probably wanted to talk about in terms of I found to be essential for the trip. You can watch my gear video or sort of come on my website here to have a closer look at the stuff that I use. All my film stuff is up here above it. So that's pretty much my experience on the Skye Trail. As I said, if you've got any questions about the trail itself, or any questions on how to get there and back, or the gear that I used, by all means drop a comment below and I'll be happy to answer. You can also send me a DM on Instagram, and we can have a chat there if you prefer. But otherwise, yeah, as I said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I guess I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.